You know about Cleopatra, the legendary queen, her power, her allure. But what if I told you her story is just one tiny thread in a vast, vibrant tapestry? For too long, our understanding of ancient Egypt has been dominated by pharaohs and pyramids, often overlooking half of its incredible population. Get ready to forget what you think you know. We've been led to believe that women in this fascinating civilization were simply confined to their homes, mere wives and mothers. But the truth is far more captivating. They were priestesses, wielding immense religious authority, scribes crafting intricate texts, artisans creating breathtaking masterpieces, and yes, even rulers who shaped dynasties and defied expectations. Ancient Egypt wasn't just a man's world. It was a society where women played a vital, often untold, role in every single aspect of life. So are you ready to rewrite history with us? Prepare to be absolutely amazed by the untold story of ancient Egyptian women. Close your eyes for a moment and let your mind wander back through the sands of time, over 5,000 years ago, to the land of ancient Egypt. What do you see? Perhaps you envision colossal pyramids piercing the azure sky, the majestic Nile River flowing eternally, or the gleaming gold and vibrant colors of pharaohs and gods. And when your thoughts turn to the women of this extraordinary civilization, what image takes shape in your mind? For many, the prevailing image is one of quiet grace, serene beauty, and perhaps limited agency. We picture elegant figures in flowing white linen, adorned with intricate jewelry, often seen tending to children, managing a household, or perhaps participating in a religious ceremony as a veiled priestess. They are seen as the embodiment of devoted wives, nurturing caring mothers, or perhaps high-ranking ladies whose lives revolve solely around their male counterparts. This is the traditional image that has been painted for us time and again across countless history books, epic films, popular documentaries, and even the very way archaeological discoveries have been presented to the public. It's an image that whispers of a restricted existence, a life largely confined to the domestic sphere, where a woman's voice was rarely heard beyond the family courtyard, and her influence was strictly limited to the private realm. This narrative suggests that her purpose, her identity, and her very being were defined almost exclusively by her relationship to a man, a father, a husband, or a son. But I'm here to tell you that this widely accepted image, this truth that has dominated our historical consciousness, is, in many crucial ways, a profound and deeply ingrained misconception. It is, in fact, a product of significant historical bias, a skewed lens through which we have, for far too long, viewed the vibrant, complex, and incredibly active lives of over half of ancient Egypt's remarkable population. Consider for a moment the very foundations of our historical understanding. For centuries, the vast majority of historians, archaeologists, and scholars who first unearthed, interpreted, and wrote about ancient Egypt were men. And it is entirely understandable, perhaps, that their perspectives were inherently shaped by the societies they themselves inhabited. Societies where women's roles were often far more restricted and less visible than they were in ancient Egypt itself. These scholars, often operating within patriarchal frameworks, naturally gravitated towards what they considered significant and heroic: the grand achievements of kings, the strategic victories of male generals, the monumental building projects bearing the names of male pharaohs, the complex theological treatises penned by male priests. These were the narratives that captured attention, filled scholarly tomes, and dominated the ancient records they meticulously translated. The stories that formed the backbone of our early understanding of Egypt were, overwhelmingly, the stories of men. This isn't to accuse those early pioneers of intentional malice or deliberate omission. Rather, it highlights the unconscious biases that can permeate historical interpretation when perspectives are not diverse. When you only look for one type of story, you often only find that type of story. And so the historical record, as it was initially compiled and interpreted, became heavily skewed. It presented a fragmented, incomplete picture, one that emphasized male accomplishments and inadvertently relegated women to the periphery, or worse, rendered them largely invisible. We learned about the great pharaohs, their conquests, their building projects, their diplomatic triumphs, We explored the lives of male scribes, male priests, male artisans. The achievements of women, when acknowledged at all, were often framed solely in relation to their male counterparts, as the wife of this pharaoh, the mother of that king. This isn't to diminish the absolutely vital roles of wives and mothers. Indeed, family was the fundamental unit of Egyptian society, and these roles were deeply revered and critical for societal stability. But to suggest that this was the entirety of a woman's existence, that her aspirations, her contributions, and her identity began and ended within the domestic sphere, is to fundamentally misunderstand the very fabric, the very genius of Egyptian society itself. The truth, as decades of dedicated archaeological discoveries continue to reveal, and as contemporary scholars re-examine ancient texts with a more discerning, inclusive eye, paints a far more vibrant, empowering, and truly revolutionary picture. Ancient Egyptian women were not simply passive figures confined to home and hearth. They were active, integral participants in nearly every facet of their sophisticated society. They possessed remarkable legal and economic rights that, astonishingly, surpassed those of women in many societies for thousands of years to come. Rights that even put them ahead of women in classical Greece or imperial Rome. Imagine this. An ancient Egyptian woman had the legal right to own land, to inherit property from her parents or husband, to engage in business, buying and selling goods, running workshops, even managing vast agricultural estates. She could enter into contracts, initiate legal proceedings, represent herself in court, and even initiate a divorce, crucially retaining her property and assets in the process. These weren't privileges reserved for the tiny elite. These were fundamental rights woven into the very legal and social structure of their civilization, available to women of almost all social classes. This economic and legal autonomy wasn't merely theoretical or confined to a few exceptional cases. We find abundant archaeological evidence and textual records of women actively participating in the workforce across various sectors. Women were crucial in agriculture, essential in the vital textile industry, central to the brewing of beer, and involved in various crafts like pottery and baking. While literacy was not widespread for either men or women, the existence of female scribes, though rare, provides powerful evidence that education and intellectual pursuits were not exclusively male domains. And perhaps most compellingly, we have records of female medical professionals, particularly skilled midwives and specialists in women's health, demonstrating their expertise and vital contributions to public well-being and the continuation of life itself. The very concept of the divine in Egypt was profoundly balanced, teeming with powerful female figures, goddesses like Isis, the ultimate mother and magician, Hathor, goddess of love, beauty, and joy, and Bastet, the protective feline deity. These goddesses were not just abstract concepts, they were powerful inspirations, reflecting the inherent respect for the feminine principle that permeated Egyptian spiritual beliefs and, by extension, societal values. So, as we embark on this deep dive into the lives of ancient Egyptian women, I urge you to release those outdated images, those narrow perceptions, and embrace a richer, more nuanced, and ultimately more accurate understanding. Let go of the notion that women were confined to the shadows. Instead, visualize them stepping into the full light of day, owning their land, managing their businesses, commanding respect in temples as priestesses, shaping laws, negotiating contracts, raising their voices in courts, and even, on rare and momentous occasions, wearing the double crown of Egypt itself, ruling as pharaohs. We are about to embark on a journey that will not only reveal the incredible, often hidden stories of these extraordinary women, but will fundamentally rewrite your understanding of one of the greatest and most enduring civilizations the world has ever known. Prepare to be truly, utterly amazed by their resilience, their power, their intellect, and their enduring legacy. In ancient Egypt, the divine wasn't something abstract or distant. It permeated every aspect of life, from the rising of the sun to the flooding of the Nile, from birth to death. And what's truly remarkable, what often gets overlooked in our conventional narratives, is the profoundly prominent role of goddesses within this intricate spiritual landscape. This wasn't a pantheon dominated solely by male deities. Instead, the divine feminine was woven into the very fabric of creation, power, and sustenance. These goddesses weren't just decorative figures. They were active, influential forces, embodying fundamental principles of the cosmos, shaping human destiny, and reflecting a deeply held respect for female power. Think about it. From the very moment of creation, female deities played pivotal roles. Take Nut, the sky goddess, whose arched body stretched across the heavens, her hands and feet touching the earth, giving birth to the sun every morning and swallowing it every evening, a continuous cycle of cosmic rebirth. Or Ma'at, the goddess of truth, justice, balance, and cosmic order, whose feather was weighed against the hearts of the deceased. Her principle was the ultimate law, guiding kings and commoners alike, ensuring harmony in both the mortal and divine realms. The reverence for such powerful female principles speaks volumes about the societal values that underpinned Egyptian civilization. Among the multitude of goddesses, a few stand out, their stories echoing through the millennia, inspiring devotion and shaping belief. Perhaps the most celebrated, the one whose cult spread far beyond Egypt's borders, was Isis. She is the quintessential mother goddess, but she is so much more. Isis is the embodiment of magic, healing, and profound resilience. Her myth is one of the most compelling in Egyptian mythology. After her beloved husband, Osiris, was brutally murdered and dismembered by his jealous brother Set, it was Isis who tirelessly searched for his scattered body parts, reassembling them through her powerful magic, bringing him back to life just long enough to conceive their son, Horus. This act of profound devotion, coupled with her incredible magical prowess, established her as the ultimate protector. She protected the weak, healed the sick, and guided the deceased through the treacherous paths of the afterlife. Her story served as a powerful narrative of hope, resurrection, and the enduring strength of female love and magic. She was often depicted enthroned, sometimes with a sun disk and cow horns, or with magnificent wings, symbolizing her divine reach and protective embrace. Then there's Hathor, a goddess of astonishing versatility and widespread adoration. Hathor embodied love, beauty, motherhood, music, dance, and joy. She was often depicted as a woman with the head of a cow, or as a beautiful human woman wearing a headdress of cow horns enclosing a sun disk. But her origins were even more primal. She was originally a fearsome lioness, the Eye of Ra, sent to punish humanity. Yet she was pacified and transformed, becoming the benevolent Golden One, showering humanity with pleasure and fertility. She was the patroness of lovers, the protector of women during childbirth, and the goddess who welcomed the dead into the afterlife, providing nourishment and comfort. Her temples, like the magnificent one at Dendera, were vibrant centers of music, dance, and celebration, where people came to experience divine joy and seek blessings for love and fertility. The sistrum, a musical rattle, was her sacred instrument, its jangling sound believed to ward off evil and invoke her benevolent presence. The sheer breadth of her domain, from fierce protection to tender love, reflects a complex understanding of feminine power. And let's not forget Bastet, the beloved cat goddess. Initially, like Hathor, Bastet was envisioned as a fierce lioness, a protector of the pharaoh and the sun god Ra. But over time, her image softened, transforming into the graceful, enigmatic domestic cat, an animal revered in Egyptian households for its elegance, fertility, and pest control abilities. Bastet became the goddess of protection, fertility, and the home. She safeguarded women, children, and, of course, their cherished feline companions. Her cult center at Bubastis was famous for its joyous festivals, where devotees would gather to celebrate with music, dance, and offerings. Bastet's transformation from a formidable beast to a comforting domestic deity illustrates the Egyptian appreciation for the multifaceted nature of the feminine, capable of fierce protection, yet also embodying warmth, nurturing, and the simple joys of home life. These aren't just isolated stories. The pervasive presence of goddesses across the entire Egyptian pantheon profoundly influenced the lives and identities of mortal women. The divine feminine was deeply integrated into their understanding of the world, offering powerful inspiration and role models. If the very cosmos was sustained by the power of a sky goddess, if cosmic order was embodied by Ma'at, if rebirth and protection flowed from Isis, then how could mortal women be seen as anything less than vital and powerful in their own right? The attributes of the goddesses, their nurturing qualities, their magical prowess, their roles as protectors, their connection to fertility and rebirth, became aspirations for women in their daily lives. A woman might seek the protection of Bastet for her children, or pray to Hathor for a successful childbirth or a loving marriage. They emulated the devotion of Isis in their own family lives. This profound connection to the divine feminine meant that women, through their very essence, were seen as participants in the sacred. It wasn't just a matter of belief. It was a reflection of their innate value within the cosmic order. Furthermore, the prominence of goddesses translated into real-world opportunities for women in the religious sphere. While the highest positions in the state cults often went to men, women, particularly elite women, frequently held important roles as priestesses, chantresses, and musicians within temples. They participated in elaborate rituals, sang hymns to the gods, and managed temple estates. The title, God's Wife of Amun, for example, bestowed immense power and wealth upon the women who held it, allowing them to exert significant political and economic influence over vast temple complexes. These weren't mere symbolic titles. These were roles of genuine responsibility and spiritual authority. So, when we consider the divine realm of ancient Egypt, we're not just observing a collection of mythological tales. We're witnessing a society that deeply revered the feminine principle, embedding it at the very core of its spiritual beliefs and practices. This pervasive respect for goddesses provided a powerful foundation for the status of women in society. It gave them a divine precedent for their roles as nurturers, protectors, healers, and even leaders. The power of the goddesses reflected, and perhaps even inspired, the power that women held in their daily lives. It was a world where the divine feminine was not only acknowledged but celebrated, shaping the identities, aspirations, and very essence of the women who lived beneath the gaze of their benevolent goddesses. This spiritual foundation is key to unlocking the true, nuanced story of women in ancient Egypt, a story far more empowering than we've often been led to believe. We've embarked on a journey to dismantle the myths, to clear away the historical biases that have long obscured the true picture of women in ancient Egypt. We've marveled at the profound influence of goddesses, seeing how the divine feminine was woven into the very spiritual fabric of their world. But now, it's time to move beyond the temples and the myths, and dive directly into the tangible reality of their daily lives. We're going to explore how women in ancient Egypt truly lived, worked, and thrived, revealing a society far more progressive and egalitarian than many have ever dared to imagine. This is where the true power of their story lies, because we're about to discover just how far beyond domesticity their influence truly reached. Let's begin with something truly revolutionary for its time: the economic power of women. In ancient Egypt, women possessed an astonishing degree of autonomy over property and wealth. This wasn't a privilege reserved for queens or noblewomen. This was a fundamental legal right that applied across most social strata, from the humblest peasant woman to the wealthiest elite. Imagine this: an Egyptian woman, whether married or unmarried, had the full legal capacity to own land, not just a small garden plot, but vast fields, productive orchards, even entire houses. She could inherit these properties from her parents, from her husband, or acquire them through her own astute dealings. This wasn't merely a theoretical right. It was a deeply embedded aspect of their legal system, meticulously recorded on papyri and inscribed on stelae. This meant a woman wasn't simply a dependent of her husband or father. She was a landowner in her own right. She could manage her own estates, oversee agricultural production, and collect rents. This independent economic base provided an incredible foundation for their freedom and influence. It meant that if a woman's husband died, or if she chose to divorce, and yes, women could initiate divorce, she wasn't left destitute. She maintained control over her own assets, ensuring her financial stability and providing for her children. This stands in stark contrast to many other ancient societies, where women were effectively considered property themselves with no independent legal standing or control over wealth. It's a testament to the unique social contract of ancient Egypt. But their economic power extended far beyond just owning land. Ancient Egyptian women were highly active in trade and commerce. Walk into any bustling marketplace in ancient Thebes or Memphis, and you wouldn't just see men. You would see women buying, selling, and managing their own enterprises. They ran stalls, negotiated prices, and made independent business decisions. We have records of women acting as merchants, selling grain, textiles, pottery, and even luxury goods. This wasn't just small-scale bartering for household necessities. Many women engaged in significant commercial ventures, contributing directly to the household economy and sometimes accumulating substantial wealth independently. Consider the profound implications of this. A woman who could earn her own income, who could own and manage property, possessed a profound degree of autonomy and agency. She wasn't solely reliant on a male provider for her livelihood. This economic independence translated directly into social standing and personal freedom. It empowered them to make choices about their lives, their marriages, and their futures in ways that were simply unavailable to women in many other cultures, both ancient and, frankly, much more recent. It gave them a voice, a stake, and a powerful presence in the public sphere. Beyond direct business ownership, women were also crucial participants in the broader workforce. While the stereotype confines them indoors, the reality is that women were engaged in a wide array of occupations. In agricultural communities, they worked alongside men in the fields, planting, harvesting, and processing crops. They were central to the vital textile industry, responsible for spinning thread and weaving the exquisite linen that clothed everyone from pharaohs to peasants. They were bakers, brewers, and food preparers, ensuring the sustenance of the entire population. These were not marginal contributions. These were essential roles that kept the very wheels of society turning. Their labor was recognized, valued, and absolutely indispensable to the functioning of the entire civilization. Now, let's turn to some truly fascinating and often surprising specialized professions, roles that defy the common narrative. While literacy rates in ancient Egypt were generally low for both men and women, perhaps only 1 to 5% of the total population could read and write, the notion that women were entirely excluded from intellectual pursuits is simply false. While rare, we have concrete evidence of female scribes. Imagine that. In a world where literacy was power, where knowledge was carefully guarded, there were women who mastered the complex art of hieroglyphic writing. This wasn't just about reading a few words. It involved years of arduous training and a deep understanding of administration. The presence of even a small number of female scribes shatters the myth of universal female illiteracy and highlights that, for some women, intellectual pursuits and significant administrative roles were indeed accessible. These women would have been highly respected, working in temples, administrative offices, or within noble households, meticulously managing records and correspondence. And what about the vibrant world of art and craftsmanship? Women were also accomplished artisans. While monumental sculpture and large-scale tomb painting dominated fields, women excelled in other crucial artistic realms. They were expert weavers, producing the high-quality linen textiles that were both everyday clothing and valuable trade goods, so fine that some linen could be seen through, like modern silk. They were involved in pottery making, shaping the vessels used for storage, cooking, and ritual. There is evidence of women engaged in jewelry making, creating intricate beadwork, amulets, and elaborate adornments that signified status and belief. Their hands crafted the beauty that permeated Egyptian life, from the clothes on their backs to the decorative elements in their homes and the precious items interred in their tombs. Their contributions to the material culture of Egypt were immense and often overlooked. And now, for what might be the most astonishing revelation of all, setting ancient Egypt apart from nearly every other ancient civilization, the legal rights of women. This is where ancient Egypt truly shines as a beacon of progress. In many crucial respects, Egyptian women had a level of legal equality with men that wouldn't be seen again in much of the world until relatively modern times, sometimes not until the 19th or even 20th centuries. This wasn't merely social convention, it was explicitly enshrined in law. Let's break this down further. A woman could own property, as we've discussed, but she could also freely dispose of it, sell it, gift it to whomever she wished, or bequeath it in her will. She could sign contracts, initiate loans, and witness legal documents. If she felt wronged, she could bring a case to court, present evidence, and represent herself, or even appoint an agent to speak on her behalf. There was no legal requirement for a male guardian or relative to act on her behalf in these civil matters. This is a crucial distinction. In many other ancient societies, a woman was legally tethered to her father, then her husband, lacking her own independent legal identity. In Egypt, she was a legal person in her own right, with her own distinct rights and responsibilities, empowered to engage with the law directly. So, when we look beyond domesticity, the traditional, limited picture of women in ancient Egypt dissolves entirely. What emerges is a vibrant, compelling portrait of women who were not just passive figures confined to the home, but dynamic, independent, and absolutely vital members of society. They were landowners, astute merchants, dedicated workers, skilled artisans, rare but respected scribes, and even knowledgeable medical professionals. They possessed legal rights that afforded them autonomy, financial independence, and a standing that would be enviable for women in many parts of the world, even centuries later. Their contributions were not peripheral. They were fundamental to the economic stability, social cohesion, and rich cultural tapestry of one of history's greatest civilizations. This understanding doesn't just fill in gaps in our history, it fundamentally rewrites it, challenging us to see the past, and indeed the present, through a more equitable and illuminated lens. This is the true story of women in ancient Egypt, a story of remarkable power, pervasive influence, and profound societal engagement that continues to inspire us today. We've journeyed through the subtle yet profound influences of women in ancient Egypt, their spiritual power in the divine realm, and their remarkable autonomy in daily society, from owning property to practicing medicine. But now, we turn to perhaps the most compelling and often astonishing aspect of their story, their ascent to the very pinnacle of power. Prepare to witness how some women not only shaped the destinies of their families or communities, but stepped onto the world stage, ruling as pharaohs, commanding armies, and leaving an indelible mark on history. This is the story of women in leadership and power. In a world that, like most ancient civilizations, was predominantly patriarchal, the very idea of a woman ruling as king, as pharaoh, seems almost unfathomable. Yet, ancient Egypt, with its unique blend of pragmatism and reverence for cosmic order, allowed for precisely this. While rare, the instances of women seizing or inheriting the ultimate authority demonstrate a remarkable flexibility in their political system, proving that gender, while usually a factor, was not an insurmountable barrier to supreme leadership. These women weren't just regents acting for underage sons, they were rulers in their own right, facing immense challenges and carving out legacies that stand shoulder to shoulder with their male counterparts. Our first and arguably most impressive example is Hatshepsut. She ruled for over 2 decades in the 18th dynasty, one of Egypt's most prosperous periods, around 1479 to 1458 BCE. Hatshepsut originally began as regent for her young stepson, Thutmose III. But rather than merely holding the throne for him, she boldly proclaimed herself pharaoh, taking on the full titulary and symbols of kingship. This was an unprecedented move. To legitimize her rule, Hatshepsut employed ingenious strategies. She commissioned temples and monuments depicting her with the traditional male regalia, the false beard, the broad shoulders, the masculine kilt, presenting herself as a male king, not as a queen. She even had herself depicted as a divine birth, the direct daughter of the god Amun, bolstering her claim to legitimacy. Hatshepsut's reign was marked not by war and conquest, but by peace, prosperity, and monumental building projects. Her magnificent mortuary temple at Deir el-Bahari, carved into the cliffs of the Valley of the Kings, is a testament to her vision and power, a breathtaking architectural marvel that still awes visitors today. She launched successful trading expeditions, most famously to the land of Punt, bringing back exotic goods, incense, and myrrh trees that were planted in her temple gardens. She restored temples, opened mines, and oversaw a period of flourishing artistic and economic activity. Hatshepsut proved that a female pharaoh could be just as effective, if not more so, than her male predecessors. However, her extraordinary reign was tragically followed by a systematic attempt to erase her from history. After her death, and particularly during the later years of Thutmose III's rule, many of Hatshepsut's monuments were defaced, her statues toppled, and her name chiseled out of inscriptions. The reasons are still debated, perhaps a fear of future female rulers, or simply Thutmose III asserting his own legacy. But this act of deliberate damnatio memoriae, or condemnation of memory, inadvertently highlights just how powerful and significant she truly was. They had to work hard to remove her, proving her indelible mark. Thankfully, thanks to archaeological efforts, her incredible story has been rediscovered and pieced back together. Now let's fast forward over 1,000 years to another formidable female ruler, Cleopatra II, the last pharaoh of Egypt. Cleopatra, a member of the Ptolemaic dynasty, Greek rulers who succeeded Alexander the Great, was a ruler of extraordinary intellect, charisma, and political acumen. While she came to power much later in Egypt's history, her reign, 51 to 30 BCE, was defined by her brilliant, albeit ultimately unsuccessful, attempts to preserve Egypt's independence against the rising tide of Roman power. Cleopatra was renowned not just for her legendary beauty, as popular culture often emphasizes, but for her sharp mind and multilingual abilities. She was the only Ptolemaic ruler to actually learn the Egyptian language, earning the respect of her people. She understood power, diplomacy, and the art of persuasion. Her relationships with Julius Caesar and later Mark Antony were not mere romantic dalliances. They were calculated political alliances, desperate attempts to use Roman power to bolster her own and protect her kingdom. She navigated a treacherous geopolitical landscape, facing internal strife and the ever-present threat of Roman annexation. Cleopatra fought to the very end, demonstrating remarkable resilience and an unwavering commitment to Egypt's sovereignty. Her strategic brilliance was evident in her control over Egypt's immense wealth, particularly its grain supply, which was vital to Rome. Despite her ultimate defeat by Octavian, later Augustus, at the Battle of Actium, her story remains one of a powerful, intelligent woman who commanded respect even from her enemies. She was a queen who refused to be a mere trophy in a Roman triumph, choosing death over humiliation. Her legacy is one of a fierce defender of her kingdom, a woman who wielded power with an iron will in a male-dominated world. Beyond these iconic figures, it's crucial to understand that the potential for female leadership in ancient Egypt wasn't solely confined to the throne. There were other avenues through which women exerted significant power and influence. We have records of earlier female pharaohs, like Sobekneferu of the 12th dynasty, who also ruled in her own right. While Hatshepsut and Cleopatra are the most famous, they were not entirely anomalous. Their existence points to an underlying cultural and legal framework that, at certain times, allowed for women to ascend to ultimate authority. The significance of these women in history, whether as pharaohs, influential queens, or powerful priestesses, is profound. They defied the conventional gender roles of their time, leaving legacies that influenced not just Egyptian history, but the very concept of leadership. Their stories remind us that power can manifest in many forms, and that the narrative of history is always more complex, more nuanced, and far more inspiring than the simplified versions we are often told. These were women who commanded respect, initiated ambitious projects, navigated complex political landscapes, and ultimately left an enduring mark on the world. They compel us to ask, what other stories of powerful women from other ancient civilizations are still waiting to be fully unearthed and celebrated? Their existence urges us to constantly reevaluate our understanding of the past and the capabilities of women throughout time. We've journeyed through the hidden narratives of ancient Egyptian women, peeling back layers of misconception to reveal their true power and influence. We've seen them rise from the spiritual heights of goddesses to the concrete realities of daily life, owning property, running businesses, practicing medicine, and even sitting on the throne as pharaohs. So what does this remarkable story mean for us today? What is the lasting legacy of these extraordinary women? And why does it matter to uncover their achievements now, thousands of years later? Their impact resonates far beyond the sands of Egypt. The very existence of such empowered women in antiquity challenges our conventional understanding of ancient societies. For too long, the narrative of history has been largely male-centric, often sidelining or completely omitting the contributions of women. Ancient Egypt, with its unique legal system and cultural values, offers a powerful counter-narrative. It shows us that societies can, and did, exist where women held significant legal autonomy, economic independence, and social standing, a blueprint that existed long before many modern declarations of equality. Their stories force us to confront our own biases, both historical and contemporary. If a civilization as ancient and influential as Egypt could afford women such rights and opportunities, it begs the question: why did so many subsequent civilizations regress? And why have we, in our modern pursuit of historical understanding, often been so slow to acknowledge this truth? By shining a light on the achievements of ancient Egyptian women, we gain a more nuanced and complete perspective of the past. History isn't just about kings and conquests. It's also about the daily lives, the economic contributions, the spiritual leadership, and the quiet resilience of half the population. The continued relevance of their stories is profound. In a world still striving for gender equality, these ancient women serve as powerful role models. They demonstrate that leadership, intelligence, and agency are not, and never have been, exclusive to one gender. From Hatshepsut's monumental reign, which redefined what a pharaoh could be, to the everyday woman who owned her own farm or managed her own trade, they embody strength, intellect, and capability. Their lives illustrate that women have always played and continue to play a vital role in shaping human civilization. By acknowledging and celebrating the achievements of ancient Egyptian women, we not only do justice to their forgotten legacies, but also enrich our understanding of human potential. Their untold stories are a powerful reminder that history is often more complex, more surprising, and far more inspiring than we imagine. Let their voices echo through time, challenging us to look deeper, to question assumptions, and to continue uncovering the full, vibrant tapestry of our shared human past. Their legacy is a beacon illuminating the path for a more equitable future.